my goal in life is to bring my songs to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that, and with the way that I've been brought up from my family, it's to embrace the masculine and the feminine and kind of bring it together to be your own person.
Yeah. So what do you think it means to be a good man? What specific? So let me ask you this. So in in your process of like becoming a musician, that is a piece of yourself, a piece of your identity. Um, how how do you think about like the musician persona or the kind of on-stage persona? Is there an element there where you're channeling, I don't know, some figure or model that you look up to? How have you separated out like your own artistic identity that you present to your audience and your listeners? And is there ever a piece of that where you think like what does it mean to be like a male musician? How do you present? So are there certain like archetypes you kind of like present, or have you kind of done some work to just be yourself entirely, or like are there influences or inspirations that you kind of anchor to?
I definitely think I am my own, I do my own thing. And it's not something that I think a lot about, but I certainly admire, rock stars from, Mick Jagger to Jimi Hendrix to these days Dave Matthews, John Mayer, Jack Johnson, and be, Brandy Carlisle, Taylor Swift. I certainly, in terms of rock stars, it's not just the guys, it's the gals too, and just about really bringing the songs to life. So whether it's masculine or feminine, I don't really know. I mean, I just kind of do it.
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and bring the song, I mean, for our, I look at my job. I don't look at it as a job, but if you were to, my goal in life is to bring my songs to everyone.
Hmm.
And 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 I think with that, and with the way that I've been brought up from my family, it's to embrace the masculine and the feminine and kind of bring it together to be your own person.
Yeah.
uh, it's a fascinating question, Henry, because it's not something that I've really thought a lot about. I think with the new, what does make me think a lot about it is the usage of pronouns these days, and it's a new world for us old fogies, in trying to be respectful to everyone and their desires, how they want to be um, addressed.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's awesome,
Hmm.
because it's just it's a new world, and I think that for the folks of the older generation, myself, my mom's 91, just trying to be respectful to everybody with how they represent themselves.
Yeah, and as it's, I mean, it's caught the attention of like um media, and it triggers some introspection for like, because it's not for, especially for that older generation, it's not something that was ever crossed anyone's mind. So now it's triggered some more thinking and some more introspection. I have a question like on your creative process. So what, because that's something I'm interested in, and it seems sometimes elusive and fickle. What do you do to open up, like you're trying to come up with something new? What does that look like? What is your process? How do you generate new ideas?
Um, I I will delve. I will try to do some reading. I watch movies.
Mhm.
I uh, I'm out in public. I'm always observing. I think for me, so much of my um, much of my work is autobiographical, but a lot of it is just experiences from the road. We get the traffic. There's a song on the new one that goes out to Boston. You Bostonians, listen here. And it's called Left Lane Fascination, just by people that hang in that left lane. But I think that a lot of it is just people, is experiences. And also just wanting to deliver a message. I think for us, for me as a person and us as a full band, Chad Hollister Band, is a message of positivity that comes through, certainly with the music, but also with the lyrics that I write. Is spread. I think now more than ever, we need messages and music inspired by positivity.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like looking outwards and an autobiographical element. Is on the autobiographical part, is there some kind of reflection or inward looking? Like, is that a vulnerable position where you're kind of writing about your life experiences and kind of sharing it with so many people who can listen in whenever? What is that? Is there an internal process to that, or does that part of the process cross your mind?
Totally. I mean, a lot. I think that I'm very open. And so much of like my family, my kids, my wife, my 3 sisters and my brother, my mom, and my dad, who's no longer with us, certainly makes it into a lot of my music. And I get deep into my, into my heart. The latest song, Inner Sovereignty, that we were just talking about before you hit record, is the song I wrote with Kip, my sister. And it's about, it's about looking deep within and realizing that I think everybody has this feeling, no matter who you are, whether you're the president, the biggest rock star in the world, whatever, people have this, this feeling that people that are in these high positions have the utmost confidence. But the reality is that we all doubt ourselves and wonder if we're enough for ourselves, for our partners, for the world in general. And so that this song kind of delivers that message of that you are enough. But I mean, I definitely get into, the feelings and inner stuff of my into the soul searching, if you will.
Yeah. Did you did growing up, like, was music, like, did you ever use it for yourself, like as a self-care or like an expressive kind of thing? Like, what was it like was there a transition from like, I like music, or I listen to music, I play music, to like, I am a musician? Like, how did it grow?
Well, I mean, as a kid, I was a drummer. So, I mean, there was definite, when I just wanted to let go and forget about everything, I headed into the living room and I sat down at the drum kit and I would play for hours. And that was for me. It wasn't for anybody else. Although Mom was in the other room, and at the end would, yay, which she still does to this day. Thank you, Mom. But I mean, it's definitely therapeutic, because I went from drums to kind of hand percussion, then to guitar. And I wrote all along, but for the most part, once I picked up the guitar is when I started writing music per se, and more songs, I would say.
And do you know the flow state? Like,
These,
where you're like super present, you're not thinking of anything else. Like, does it unlock? Is that how you would describe it, or
no?
What's it like when you're playing?
I wish it were really clear. But I feel very ambiguous with this entire interview with you, but it's because my process is not, it's not, okay, I sit down and I will, at 8:30 in the morning, that's my time introspection, and I will write the lyrics to the song within an hour and 15 minutes, and then I will write the music, and then I will have some, yeah. And obviously, I'm over exaggerating here and being facetious, but my process is that there isn't a process, which is not necessarily good, because I'm at this point in my life where I do need to truly take time to write. Like after we finish right now, I am gonna be right here up on the deck here. You can't see it. This is much prettier, by the way. And write, and just write, and not thinking of lyrics or anything, but just write. And then I will sometimes fish ideas out of the sensory creative writing process, and kind of see, oh, I like that. And oftentimes the sensory writing will start with a theme. The trees, flowers, Vermont, beauty, cars. It's never no, but and then it goes from there. But the process for me is always different. Oftentimes it will help immensely if I have a groove. So sometimes I will sit down with the guitar and plunk something out, a little 3-4 chord phrasing, and get a good feel for that, and then I'll write a verse to that. And because once I find that once I get going, once I get the chorus, or once I get the first verse, then I can be off to the races, and it can go from there.
Yeah. And the reason I ask so much about the process is because just from these conversations, one of the themes I consistently hear is how important creative expression is for like mental health and for just general fulfillment in life, like being able to express yourself and create something. And a lot of times there is like either judgment related to it, like if I do it, it's going to be bad and I'm not going to like it, or like an initial activation energy where it's hard to get going, but once you're going, then you're like in that groove you're talking about, and can get something moving. But I think it's just helpful for people to hear like here's a musician who has created things and people listen to it, and there is a process that went behind that. So just hearing yours, whether or not it's structured from like 9 to 10:30 in the morning, it happens. And so it's just, I think it's helpful to just hear your process, whatever it may be, just to trigger and jumpstart people who may be listening in with their own creative pursuits. Because I just think it's important, like whatever it is, you have some kind of expressive ability, right?
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing, Henry, is that it's what I do for a living. So I think, maybe many of the people, I don't know the folks that you've interviewed, and I'm sure it's all all different kinds of professions.
Life, yeah.
But because it's what I do, there's definitely a pressure on myself to write, and to keep writing, and to keep recording and putting it out. The Spotify algorithm is that release a lot of music and put it out often, or they ignore you. Literally, the algorithm, if you're not releasing a couple songs, a song a month or whatever, it just you get buried in the algorithm, and algorithms. So there's definitely a pressure on myself to write that sometimes, and you kind of nailed it about is it going to be crap? Like sometimes before I even start, I'm like, I'm not feeling it. But the act of writing and doing it, like there's I've been working with taking songwriting workshops. Andrea Stolpe is a mentor of mine that I took a workshop with, and she has it's a song a day for a month. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And what a thing. I haven't done it yet, mind you, but it's just getting in that mindset of, listen, everything we do is not going to be a diamond. I'm going to write crappy songs, and I'm going to put songs that I don't feel are incredibly amazing on albums. I mean, I certainly feel that I do really like every song that I put on my records, but there's songs that I like more than others. But just the act, the art of writing, mm-hmm. and doing it is something that I'm working on personally, to get better. I mean, I and I think this is the thing that you were talking about before, is that here I am, Chad Hollister, a guy that has been touring, traveling, recording, producing for 30 years, and I still I still want to get better, and I think that's the thing that I always hold to myself, is that, man, I have so much work to do. I'm never complacent about, yeah, man, I'm so good, I got gigs, I'm putting out records, I feel so lucky, mostly lucky, that I have a home, and I have a family, a wife, and two children, and my beautiful family that loves and supports me, and that I'm able to do music for a living, certainly. But there's constant work that goes on,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and constant, just wanting and feeling the need to get better. My guitar, people laugh at me when I say I don't really think of myself as a guitar player. They're like, what? And guitar players will be like, no, man, you got a cool style. But the reality, like, I don't solo. When it's time for a solo, I look to Primo, Jeff Peremsky, our lead guitar player, and he rips it. And so I'm always working at getting better at guitar, at drums, at songwriting, at lyric writing, at finding great melodies, and crafting the song, producing, realizing what instrument I want to put in the song, and how loud I want it to be. Do I want my vocal to be dry or wet? Like, do I want all this effect on it like Coldplay, or do I want it bone dry, say like a Ben Harper production?
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much that goes into it, and I love it all, but I always feel the need to want to get better.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I think we stumble, out of all my my lifelong musical ADD that you are experiencing here, people, thank you for your patience, but that's the nugget, really,
Yeah.
is always wanting to better myself as a person. You talk about masculinity. I think, masculinity, I feel it's important, and it's just kind of a part of who I am. Um, and it's not something that people think a lot about. And I think the beauty of what you're doing is you're getting people to think about it, like,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's okay to be masculine. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Masculinity is cool.
Yeah.
I think, and I think here's the crux, is that masculinity does not equal overconfidence, cockiness, being a jerk. It's just, it can be in a real wonderful way to be, masculine,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not be disrespectful. I think sometimes when you say one, people assume the other, you know,
Yeah.
um, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, that's part of the work in just collecting so many different versions and perspectives from guys. You just see that it's nuance. And a lot of the times that word masculinity, it's tied to, it just, people's mind would go to a singular version that may not be the healthiest version. And so that's just the whole point of just collecting all these stories.
yeah,
Um, and so I totally agree that there's amazing components of masculinity, and that's the main point is just that it's made up of so many components. It's not one type of person, and the whole word has kind of just usually when it's discussed, it can, there's some negative components, and so the whole point is just to bring in all these other nuances from guys sharing their perspectives. So I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah,
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned your family, so that's obviously important to you. And you have a son, and I'm just, how has that, what's that like? What is fatherhood like? And how do you think about yourself in terms of like being a role model for your son? Like, did it change how you think about yourself, or um I don't know. Yeah, any lessons from that experience?
well, first of all, being a father is the best thing I've ever done by far. I mean, you know, you followed my musical path since you were a tyke, thanks to your wonderful folks. But being a dad is the most incredible thing, because you are raising humans, and you're raising humans to then go out into the world. And myself and my beautiful wife Katie, we want them to be loving, empathetic, um, caring humans, that will bring whatever their gifts are, that not don't necessarily have to be our gifts. People are always like, so do you sing, do you play, like, eh. And even if they do, that's great, but just like know that these kids are their own. But with my son Bodhi, um I I mean, you know, he's a mini me. And certainly have his as his own thing, but he's confident, and that's the thing that we want to. I always keep an eye on it, keeping him humble, and going into the world with humility, and knowing that, he's gonna do amazing things. But in terms of raising him, it certainly made me look, and Katie look, inside ourselves about how, you know, we want to raise our children. I mean, I think one of the big things was, as they were growing up, they grew up in a lot of bars and a lot of theaters, coming to my shows, and meeting a lot of people that sometimes was uncomfortable. People can get really weird with, the kids of musicians, especially when they like that musician a lot. They want the kids to be just like it's so on. It can spiral sometimes, but the the act of, when you meet somebody, shaking their hand and looking them in the eyes and saying, "Nice to meet you," that paired with please and thank you is a game changer. I cannot tell you, we did 6 months across the country, with the kids back in 2018, and every restaurant, nearly every restaurant we went to said, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so respectful."
Hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing, because if we're focusing on Bodhi, but with Bodhi and Riley, is just being respectful. Because when you're respectful, and then people will want to also treat you with respect.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's similar to the book, all I ever needed to know, I learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Those, I mean, you read through it and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so true. The first impressions matter, and also just um giving young people the space to like be themselves and explore, and just exposing them to so many different kinds of people is going to be so awesome for their development. And it's just like empathy and seeing people's differences and accepting them, and learning from them. um, and so I know I only have half an hour with you, so I wanted to switch to your music a bit, just to hear what's going on. So you mentioned Inner Sovereignty. What's the latest with the music? What should people go listen to?
Well, so right, we encourage people to it's a new thing for me, but to get on to, our spot to Spotify, which is just Chad Hollister. Certainly the best thing to do is to go to chadmusic.com and buy the music. That's number one. But in this new age, music's free. So we are embracing that element, and focusing more on the gigs. I'm this fall, and winter, I'm doing a house concert tour, which is, I think, to me, one of the coolest things ever, where you bring the music into your home. Picture, if you're old, or if you've watched really old clips on MTV or VH1, the MTV storytellers, or VH1 Behind the Music. It's that in your living room or in your backyard. So focusing on those shows where we can really meet the people, get to hang out. It's not too dark. It's not too loud. It's not too late. Oh, wow. I like those three things together. Uh, and you can see people and get to meet them and hang out, and then deliver your songs. So house concerts. We have a new acoustic record coming out that Inner Sovereignty is the first single off of. We're going to release a few songs before, and then we're going to release it all together. We're going to release it on CD, which is still a thing, and also release it on vinyl. And then just pop us on your playlists, put us, share our music is, I think, one of the biggest things that you can do is to share with friends, because when people hear what we do, they tend to like it, and then they tend to want to share it, and then they tend to want to bring it to their friends through a live show. So that's kind of what's coming down the pike for us. And I think the biggest thing that people can do is purchase the music, but also just share it.
Yeah, I mean that the house concert is so epic. I love the vibe you're going to create there. And then to close out, just like what is the Chad Hollister Band like? What is the message? What should people expect?
I mean, it's a train. For those of you who have seen it, it's a 9-piece monster band with 4 horns, bass, drums, 2 guitars, and percussion, hand percussion. And it's just, the message is just to live life and embrace positivity and to be kind. Is our main message. I think that kindness is often underrated, and if you utilize that facet in your everyday lives, you see a difference. And not being kind to expect something in return. I think that's a really big life lesson, is to being kind just to be kind, because it really, really makes a huge difference in the world, because our world needs some help right now. Good Lord. And if we as a band can make a difference by bringing positive music with a heartfelt kindness and empathetic vibe behind it to the world, can make a difference in one person's life, then that can spread to another and another and another, and that's what we love to do. So the community, I mean, community is everything, and our musical community is so powerful all over the world, and we're finding that. So bring us to your living room, to your house. I know your family has done it, and it's one of the best things, and people are often surprised. What, you'll come to my house? Like, oh yeah.
That's awesome. And you're totally right. As an experienced listener, I can advocate that it's automatic serotonin boost. You put it in the headphones, whatever, you're walking around, if your mood is down, the mood bounces up with playing some Chad Hollister music. So as an experienced listener, I can double down on that.
Well, so I'll fly it back to you, and maybe whether this makes it in or not, that's okay. But what are your favorite? Do you have a top 3 Chad playlist? I mean, I know
top 3. I mean, the classics with Life is just absolute classic. I love Breathe. That one I love, and I just listened to Inner Sovereignty, so I don't know if it's in my top 3 yet. It's going to need a couple more, because I was just flicking through before our conversation just to refresh my Chad vibes. We'll see. I loved it. It definitely made me kind of just sit on the couch and think, which was a cool experience. So it was like a little different than kind of the super happy, floaty, think of it like dance along vibes. But it was a cool angle. So I really enjoyed the listen. And I don't do that as much. Where the more like sit and think and really listen to the lyrics kind of music. So that was kind of a new experience for me.
Well, I think you're part of the playlist generation, Henry. And so it's really interesting. Oftentimes my kids are like, who's this? I'm like, I don't know. Like when I was growing up, I knew every song that I played on my cassette player. Ha.
Yeah.
And so these playlists, they put algorithms together. I mean, it's how it's how Spotify, it's how Pandora, it's how they all work. They just take the algorithm of the music, the timbre of my voice. I mean, I put on my Pandora station the other day just for the heck of it, and Ben Harper came on. I'm like, yeah, like I love Ben, but just that it's an amazing thing. But I think that the diversity in music is awesome, but also to know the artists that you're playing is also awesome. So I feel honored to be on your playlist, sir.
Absolutely. And it's so true. Like with my listening is based on like what I'm doing. So like if I'm in the gym, there's a mix of those kind of music, and it's just plain, like it goes from one song to the next. I'm not always checking in on like what I'm listening to. It's more just like the vibe, or like I'm walking through the city, that's a different kind of vibe, or I'm doing like homework, and that's another kind of. So it's so interesting how music has changed, because sometimes people even ask me like, who's your favorite artist? And I'm like, well, I listen to this when well, Chad, but it's like if I'm working, I'm listening to this. If I'm dancing, I'm listening to this kind of vibe. And so it's definitely an interesting change, but there is something so real about connecting with an artist, especially one that you know, and just have like your favorite songs from them. So I'm hoping we introduce some amazing music to a whole new set of people. And it was just so fun talking to you, Chad. Thank you for sharing all about your music and your life and your family. So I really appreciate the openness, and just really grateful to get the time with you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm proud of you, buddy. And
Thanks.
I've watched you guys grow up, so it's an honor to be on, and just really thankful. I think that's in closing, that just to be thankful for what we're doing, that we're making a difference out there. And I think that's what, you could go out and you could make a boatload of money, or you could do this, and who knows, maybe this will be that, but just that you're taking the time to do something that you really care about, is epic. So keep on keeping on, man, and spreading the word. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, we're grateful that you're officially now a member of the Under the Hood Talk community. Yeah. So what do you think it means to be a good man?
I don't think there's a single definition.
Things that make up a good man are just things that make up a good person. Someone who's honest, someone who's decent.
You're also willing to express yourself in a healthy way, and you're in touch with your emotions as well.